Saturday's win proved Dan Lanning's critics wrong and his supporters very right.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks, which is why, if you have not already, please like, comment, subscribe, rate, review wherever you listen to or watch the show, which is brought to you by friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Oregon's ranked number 2 in the AP poll. Should they be number 1? Should we even care? That's coming up on today's show. But Dan Lanning could be a genius. That's also coming up on today's show. Could be a genius. We'll get into that one later because that's going to be a fun third segment. So stick around, but hang around for this one too, because the outside noise about Dan Lanning was that, well, he hasn't won a big game yet. What games he won? Well, that goes to the wayside when you beat Ryan Day. And Ryan Day's got some critics out there, but I think most people really understand Ryan Day's a really good football coach. And Lanning is in year 3. Ryan Day, not in year 3, much more experience. And yes, Mario Cristobal left the cupboards pretty well stocked, but most of this roster, not all of it, but just about the entire roster, Dan Lanning's guys, whether via the portal or via the high school ranks. And this roster in particular had myself and others excited about what Oregon can do this year. And they showed what their full potential is, and that is they can play with anyone. Because if you look at the national discussion going into this game and going into this season, whether you think it's fair or not, the case can be made and has been made by many out there in the sports commentary world that Ohio State has the better roster than Oregon and has the best roster in all of college football. Okay, well, if you're going to make that case and Oregon just went on the same field and beat them head to head, then the national title hopes, that special season that Oregon fans have long been waiting for, can absolutely happen this year. And coming into this season, I talked repeatedly on this show and often would hear from Duck fans about the national championship landscape. And I said, yeah, I think Oregon can win the national championship. I predicted them to go 12-0 in the regular season. Haven't wavered off of that prediction. I picked them to win every game so far this year. Haven't been great against the spread. Finally got that first, score prediction to be correct against the spread last week, but helped that Oregon was an underdog, of course, at home. But all that hype I often heard from Oregon fans. I don't like getting hyped. I don't like getting excited because then it sets the stage for a massive letdown. Yup, it absolutely does. Would you rather not have the ability to play at that level? Because Oregon just played at a national championship level, and they didn't even play their best brand of football. One of the reasons I continue to be high, and look, there are a lot of reasons to be high on Oregon's win against Ohio State, highest ranked matchup in Autzen history, probably the biggest national win to ever take place at Autzen. Plenty of Oregon fans still might say 2018 Washington. That's an interesting debate. What was the bigger inflection point for Oregon football? I know that 2018 led to the reintroduction of Oregon into the national landscape after they had fallen out of it for a couple of seasons. I don't know what the ramifications post this particular game are going to be. Oregon got a 2026 commitment, which is great. They could get more players to commit, but what's the rest of the season going to play? Well, I know what I think, but I don't know what I don't know yet because, of course, the games haven't played themselves out. But fans that get worried about the hype coming into the year, I don't know if Oregon's worth it. I don't know if it's this. That game should crystallize for you. Oh, okay, Oregon can play with anybody. There's nobody in the country that I think on a neutral field, home field, wherever, blows Oregon out. They can beat Oregon. Plenty of teams could beat Oregon because there are a lot of really good ones out there. But if you can go toe-to-toe with Ohio State the way that Oregon did, I don't think there's a roster in the country that is decisively better than Oregon to where they could go on the field for 4 quarters and Oregon wouldn't have a chance to win the football game. And you combine the high school recruits Lanning has brought in and developed, you factor in veteran returners like Terrence Ferguson and Jeffrey Bossa and Marcus Harper as well. You factor in key transfers, and I thought the roster was ready. And the question was Are they going to be able to execute in crucial moments? And is Dan Lanning going to take a step forward as a head coach? Well, the answer so far has been yes. The Idaho game feels like a distant memory, doesn't it? That's the same team. It's mostly the same exact guys that got pushed by Idaho on the same field. Well, Dylan Gabriel had a good but subtle comment in his post-game presser. He was asked about, there were external questions, but some internal ones as well. After the Idaho game, he said, mostly external. Now, that could be just good media training from a veteran quarterback who knows what to say in that moment. Or maybe inside that locker room, they weren't as concerned as a lot of people outside the program were. Understandably so. Understandably so that there were people that weren't at practice every day, that weren't in the locker room before, during, and after the game who said, hey, you struggle with Idaho. What the heck's going on here? Well, same team goes on the same field a few weeks later, and credit Dan Lanning and coaching staff for having the team ready, and they were ready to go from the jump. Had an interception on the opening drive, got taken away, no review. All right, well, guess what? They got a lot of veteran leadership in there. They didn't dwell on it. They went to the next play. They made plays when they needed to. Defense wasn't perfect, but the defense made plays when it was called upon, including the final stop at the end of the game. And I've got individual shout-outs coming up on today's show later on as well. We're jam-packed, absolutely positively jam-packed. But if you don't like getting invested in a team because, well, they could let you down, yep, this team could absolutely do that. Lots of teams can do that. Last year's team kind of did that. But would you rather not have that hype at all? Dan Lanning just showed, not just Oregon fans, but everybody else, we are a conference and national title contender right here, right now. That's what he said to everyone else without saying it. Let the play do the talking. But the talent on this roster, when it plays to its full potential, that's what it looks like. There were sloppy moments. Oregon won that game, missing a field goal, mishandling an extra point, going for two when maybe they shouldn't have, though if the play had been blocked correctly, it should have been there. They had 4-on-4 and just didn't block the play correctly for Kenyon Sadiq to run it in for two. And then there was the whole review ordeal, and there was that, and Oregon still found a way to win the football game. That's not every mistake that Oregon made. I didn't mention the 4th and goal, in which Tez Johnson was wide open. Dylan Gabriel makes a bad read. You know what? That's a much more common football play than missing an extra point. But Oregon was sloppy at times, still found a way to win. And Ohio State wasn't perfect either. I'm not saying that was the best game. Ohio State played their A-plus game. Both teams played well, though. But both teams played well. It was hard to run the football going both directions. Both defensive lines showed up in that front. And there were moments where they broke through, but go look at the rushing numbers, not blowing anybody away. Jordan James was great, was not having a CJ Verdell-like game. Oregon didn't go for 270 on the ground as they did back in 2021. Like, it was a great battle, quite frankly. That's what it was. Sometimes Ohio State won the battle, sometimes Oregon won the battle. And that's what you expect from two great teams. 7 lead changes in the second half. A lot of even things in the box scores. Both quarterbacks play very well. Both receiving cores played exceptional over the weekend. That's what two good football teams going at it looks like. And sometimes it comes down to who executes better in the crucial moments. And last year, Oregon didn't have it against Washington. This year, they had it against Ohio State on Saturday. Will they have it the next time they get pushed in that spot? We're going to find out. I don't know how many teams, if Oregon plays to that level, can push them down to the wire. The answer is not very many, but they could see that Ohio State team again. And Dan Lanning has got this team in a position to have a special season. Can't guarantee it's going to happen. Great teams have not won the national championship before. Go ask Georgia from a season ago. That was a really, really good team. Didn't even get to play for the national championship because we didn't have an expanded playoff at the time. But now we do, and Oregon's in a great spot to get themselves in the 12-team playoff, and I thought they would before the year. They're going to be able to make a swing at it. Transfers are the right guys. Recruits are all over the roster. Returners, coaching staff, it's all there. It's all there. So if you wanted a shot, an opportunity to have a national championship caliber season, Oregon just showed you, yeah, they are capable of playing at that sort of level. Let me know your thoughts in YouTube comments or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter. Oregon's not ranked number 1. Texas is ranked number 1. Does that even matter? I mean, not really. Is it right? No, it's not. I'll tell you why next. First, I want to tell you about LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That is why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to that perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. Why? Because if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. You know why? It's the best. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So, is it a huge deal? Is it season altering that Texas is ranked ahead of Oregon? No. Is it SEC bias? 1,000%. 1,000%. And look, I don't have a major objection to it. The total amount of points was close. Oregon only have 6 first place votes. Still can't shake that West Coast bug, can you? You may have taken the team out of the Pac-12, but you can't take the Pac-12 out of the team. I mean, that was a Pac-12 After Dark special, wasn't it, after all? And so I look at what Texas has put together this year. They have dominated a lot of teams that they're significantly better than. And Oregon is not. And that's what this comes down to ultimately, is the Idaho game. Because Boise State is currently ranked 15th in the country. So by the AP voters' own metrics, Texas does not have the same strength of record as Oregon. Because Oregon's got not 1 but 2 top 15 wins, and Ohio State is still in the top 5, so they have a top 5 win and a top 15 win. Currently, Texas does not have a win against a team that is ranked. Oklahoma was ranked 18th last week, and I told you on Locked On College Football, for those of you that listen over there, I appreciate you that double dip and can endure an hour of me every day. Gosh, that must be a lot, but hey, I listen to it, so somebody being able to, props. Major props, because, obviously you're not me. But on Locked On College Football, Oklahoma was never the 18th best team in the country. Completely and utterly fraudulent with that particular ranking. They were never in the same level as Texas. Texas is a great team. But at the end of the day, is this going to alter Oregon's season? Not in a dramatic sense. Like at the end of the year, if Oregon goes undefeated, wins the Big Ten, and Texas goes undefeated, wins the SEC, yeah, Texas should probably, because they have a slightly tougher schedule than Oregon, they should probably end up as the number 1 team in the country. But it's going to get decided this week either way. That's the other thing here. Texas plays Georgia this week. So if Texas plays Georgia, and which they do, if they beat Georgia, then it's really, really hard for Oregon to say, hey, we should be ranked number 1. But if Texas loses to Georgia, guess what? Ducks are going to the number 1 team in the country, and it's been a minute since that's happened. I don't know if I love the target it puts on Oregon's back, but you know what? It's a heck of an accomplishment no matter when it happens during the season, because a lot of things have to transpire. So that's my thought on that. A number of you asked about that. I'll get back to the AP poll in a moment. I got a bunch of questions. We're going to go rapid fire here. YouTube comments, X, formerly known as Twitter, at McLaughlin CFB, or at Locked On Ducks. If you want priority access and all sorts of other perks, go become a Locked On Ducks insider. Link in the description below. Wherever you listen to or watch the show, I've had a surge in people subscribing over there, and let's just say there are a lot of things that take place over there that you can't get if you engage with the show regularly. You can get a free 14-day trial. That link is below. A handful of insider questions came in, and they get to go first, per my arrangement. What does the win over Ohio State teach you about the Ducks that you didn't already know or were unsure of heading into this game? This is a phenomenal question. I might spend more time on this question later this week. It told me the offensive line is indeed completely fixed. Do not make any adjustments. If Matthew Bedford is a 6th year, is a reserve offensive lineman this year, then the O-line is doing great. You have got 2, maybe 3 NFL caliber players on that defensive line, and Dylan Gabriel is sacked 0 times, and Jordan James is over 100 yards rushing. I didn't expect Oregon to be able to go for 200 plus on the ground. They won the rushing battle, by the way. It was my number one key going into the game. In the last 4 matchups, Oregon, Ohio State, the team that runs for more yards, 4-0. Might come into play again. I'm just saying. But it's that the offensive line is fixed. That was a magnificent performance. Gabriel had time to throw. And yeah, Ohio State sat in coverage sometimes. The blitz pickups were there. Shout out Jordan James. He had a phenomenal blitz pickup in that particular game. But I was questioning, hey, is this offensive line really fixed, or were they just playing inferior competition? No, offensive line is fixed. That's the number one thing that I thought to myself after the game, like, okay, yeah, they're really good again. And that's a great thing because they struggled early in the year, but they have figured that out. Another insider asked the question, is our goal as simple as don't lose momentum going to Purdue? I don't know about don't lose momentum. No, the goal going to Purdue is avoid the emotional letdown. You're going to hear me use that term a lot this week for you everydayers out there. Get used to hearing it. Emotional letdown factor. It's a real thing in college football. Ask Alabama. Ask Alabama. Bud asks the question, how is Autzen so loud? Fans care a lot. I don't know if there's an architectural component, but my favorite Twitter thread, the best Twitter thread, just to throw in the face of a select few, might I add, Buckeye fans online that didn't think Autzen would be all that loud. Just Ohio State fans going like this, just plugging their ears like, it's very loud. There's a thread out there of all of it. It's fantastic. Utterly fantastic. But it comes down to everybody in that stadium cares a whole heck of a lot. And everybody I know that went to the game didn't have much of a voice at the end of it. That's how you get 60,000 to sound like 100,000. Monica asks, question for the show. Spencer, someone who continues to learn about the game, who/where does the voting for the AP poll and the rankings happen? How are voters selected? Same for the Heisman. I hear people say, I have a vote. How does that get decided? Thanks and go Ducks. Long time established media entities and the reporters that they put in certain positions are going to get AP votes. And it's about being credentialed in the right way and for the right journalistic organization. So Brett McMurphy, for instance, has a top 25 vote. I do not. We both cover college football, but there's nobody that I'm aware of that, because of their affiliation with Locked On per se, because it's a newer company, that have an AP top 25 vote or a Heisman vote. John Canzano has a Heisman vote. I don't know if he is an AP top 25 voter, but it comes down to the relationships that get established, the connections that are made, and institutional credibility for a given organization or an individual like John, who has literally been writing columns in the Oregonian about Oregon sports since I was a kid, and I think before that as well. I think that's the best kind of broad picture answer that I can give. I haven't seen the process up close, but I know that that's what it comes down to. It's like, hey, if you are working for The Athletic, you're going to have a top 25 vote. You can have a Heisman vote, but you have to have covered the sport for a long time. You can't just start covering it. Like, I've covered the Ducks on this show for, how long has it been now? We're coming up on 3 years. Coming up on 3 years. That's not going to be enough time to get an AP top 25 or a Heisman vote. So that's what goes into it, going back to the Texas conversation. I have 2 more questions on here. I'm only going to get to one. So, Bobby, I will get to your question tomorrow so that I can give you a full answer because I don't want to rush through it. And like I said, a lot to get to on today's show. This question comes from Nick. So here's my question. Does Oregon need to make sure it's with the Alabama versus Vanderbilt score going into Purdue week? I mean, I'm not opposed. If Alabama can lose to Vanderbilt, Oregon can lose to Purdue. Straight up, period, point blank, end of discussion. You overlook somebody, you win a big game like that, top 5 matchup, epic game on your home field. The emotional letdown factor happens every single year, almost every week in college football. And I thought Bama would go to Vandy and fail to cover 22.5. I didn't think they'd lose the game outright a couple weeks ago. It turns out Bama's got some other problems, but make no mistake about it. If Bama had lost to Georgia, they probably beat Vanderbilt. It is a very real thing. You're dealing with college kids here. So whatever tick Dan Lanning has to, or whatever button Lanning has to push to get the kids, the student athletes, players, whatever you want to refer to them as. It feels weird for me calling them kids because I feel like a kid sometimes, but I'm older than everybody on the team, obviously, except for maybe Dylan Gabriel. Just kidding. I'm not, but I'm not that much younger, or I'm not that much older compared to some of the other players. But you push whatever button you need to. If that's what it comes down to, sure. But would I say to Coach Lanning, not that he needs my advice, that yeah, it's a good idea to figure out a way to get the team to not overlook Purdue? Yep, you got to find something. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's making a T-shirt with the Vandy Bama score. I'd be here for it. But whatever it is, you definitely have to make that happen. Keep the questions coming. YouTube comments, X, formerly known as Twitter, or become a Locked On Ducks insider. I love doing individual standouts. Dan Lanning stood out more than anybody else on Saturday night. Is he the smartest coach since Bill Belichick? Well, I'll answer that question next. First, let's talk about Game Time. So, they have this feature. It's called Game Time Picks, and it makes getting tickets to your favorite teams who are playing in person rather than just watching it on TV even easier. Do you want things to be harder or easier? I want them to be easier in everything I do, and that's why Game Time is the way to go. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Whatever you're looking for, they've got it. They filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Plus, Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Do you know what time it is? It is game time. Is Dan Lanning the smartest coach alive? So I got tagged in this by a number of people who sent it my way, wondering if it could be true. I was wondering if it is true. So there's a video out there from Warren Sharp, and the video, you can't confirm. I want to say that up front. Dan Lanning will never confirm this. There's no way to know 100% unless it comes directly from the horse's mouth that he called a timeout to put a 12th guy on the field to prevent a big play, knowing 5 yards was okay to concede, so that there were only 6 seconds left on the next play. Did that happen? Was that a real thing? Everydayers out there, very aware. I am not a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory guy. This is not a far-fetched concept. I am not planting my flag and saying this is 100% what he did. Occam's razor would suggest they had a substitution error, because here's the flip side of the coin. Was it worth trying to prevent the big play to guarantee you give your opponent 5 closer yards? What if Ohio State at all considered using the middle of the field when they had a timeout with 6 seconds to go, and they dump the ball over the middle, they pick up 5 to 7 yards, and suddenly they're 10 to 12 yards closer than they were previously, and they are in range to kick a field goal for the win and rip the hearts out of the chests of Oregon fans everywhere again. That didn't happen. Thankfully, this all worked out. The timeout, to have a substitution penalty after calling a timeout, definitely makes you think about it. This would be a Bill Belichick level gamble. So the last time I saw something like this on a football field, and someone can point out a more recent example, but what my mind went to was against the Jets on Monday Night Football when Belichick still had good teams in New England. It's well documented he can't stand the Jets. They fired him. He holds it against him, and he holds a grudge like Marge Simpson in the Simpsons movie. So he's held on to that forever, and he starts messing with the Jets. He's up big, he's punting, and he continuously has his special teams commit penalties on purpose to wind the clock. And then you cut to Bill Belichick, and he's just grinning. He's just there. He's grinning like, these guys don't understand the rules, and he's just running time off the clock. The NFL eventually adapted the rules so that the clock wasn't, running all the time, and you couldn't do that. So I've seen coaches do it before. The only other time that, again, I can think of or that we know of, the greatest coach in the history of football doing it to a team he can't stand. That's a little different than Dan Lanning doing it as he seeks the biggest win, the biggest moment of his professional career. So I will not rule out the possibility that this was done on purpose. It, of course, worked. I will not jump headfirst into the waters of he 100% did this intentionally. That is... There used to be an expression when now Ohio State offensive coordinator Chip Kelly would go for it on fourth down. Big balls, Chip. That would surpass any gutsy move that Chip Kelly or Dan Lanning have ever made on a fourth down ever in the history of Oregon football. If he voluntarily took a penalty and called a timeout and said, let's put a 12th guy on the field, they're not going to be able to get an explosive play. We'll trust Jabbar Muhammad on the other side. He'll knock it down, 12 men on the field, 5 yards, and then they won't have enough time. Maybe. Again, cannot say no definitively, cannot say yes definitively. Honest take. I do not think that quote-unquote conspiracy or notion is out of the realm of possibility 100%. But no, there is no person that can confirm 100% that was done intentionally. You can see that it happened. Post hoc, ergo propter hoc. After, therefore, because, logical fallacy. So that's what I think on that. But if he did do it on purpose, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. It's the greatest thing ever. All right, individual standouts. I love doing this, usually on a Tuesday show, but wanted to fit it in today while the game was still fresh in people's minds, which might be a growing theme going forward. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. If you think I missed somebody, by all means, shoot me a note, and I'll shout them out here on the show. But these are just individuals that had plays that maybe flew under the radar or were big splash plays that are worthy of a shout out here. And I'll talk about these guys more as the week goes on. But let's start with Matayo Uiagalelei. Jordan Birch goes down, and, Tatum Tuioti had some moments, but Mateo was making plays. Couple of sacks, TFL, most underrated play in the game. 3rd and 1, less than a minute to go. Oregon up 1, 52 seconds left in the first half or whatever it was. Ohio State hands the ball off. Derek Harmon, that's another one of my individual standouts here, breaks through. Mateo makes one heck of a tackle in the backfield for a loss. Recruiting matters, folks. I mentioned the roster composition earlier. There are high school guys that have been developed, guys like Mateo or Tatum Tuioti. There are perfect transfers like Dylan Gabriel or Jabbar Muhammad. There are key returners like Jeff Bossa and Terrence Ferguson. That's why I love this Oregon roster and have Matayo Uiagalelei. Evan Stewart, my goodness. That guy looked like a 5-star receiver, right? He was great against Boise State. He looked like an NFL guy against NFL caliber defensive backs on Saturday night. That's why Oregon brought him in. And, when Oregon was looking at bringing in Evan Stewart, my takeaway was, don't need him, but sure, it'd be nice to have him. Needed him in that game. That is an undersell from me looking back on it, because Oregon needed him, especially after Trayshawn Holden, who issued an apology, as he should, for spitting in an Ohio State player's face, which is just not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. Oregon needed Evan Stewart to have the best game of his career, and he did. He absolutely did. I don't think it was a career high in yardage if you go back to his time at Texas A&M, but that was the most impactful game of his career, and one the NFL scouts will look at and go, "Oh, that's a dude. That is a dude right there." I don't think I'm going to get through every individual standout today. I'm going to have to save some for tomorrow. But the last two guys that deserve a shout out here: Josh Connerly, Johnny Cornelius. And these are guys I highlighted as essential to Oregon's success going into this game. 0 sacks. 0 sacks. Shout out Jordan James on the blitz pickup in the second half. Gabriel was under pressure a couple times. Yeah, that's going to happen when you have two NFL caliber ends in Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. On the other side, 0 sacks. I mean, you cannot ask for more in pass protection from the Oregon offensive line. And to me, it started with those tackles because their most disruptive players are coming off the edge. And 0 sacks. Only 2 TFLs. Impressive as well. Credit to Jordan James. But those 2 guys who I've highlighted, again, 1 high school, 1 transfer. Everything's a mix. It's a little bit of everything on this Oregon roster. And I think that works out pretty well. I have highlighted them as NFL caliber tackles. They made themselves some money tonight because they went up against NFL guys and they didn't allow a single sack. That was some impressive work. I'll get to the rest of the individual standouts tomorrow and Bobby's mailbag question and many, many more. Appreciate everyone listening. Almost had it. Appreciate you all. See you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day and go Ducks.